This is the Anbernic 351v, and it's still my favorite handheld emulator in 2022, despite having a plethora of different devices to choose from, almost nearing 2023. So why is this 2-year-old device still my favorite? Let's get right into it. Oh, I forgot to mention, if you like videos like this, it would mean a whole lot to me if you went and you hit that big subscribe button down below. Hit the like button while you're at it. All of that really helps the channel grow. It's free, and I personally would love it if you did that. Thank you. The Anbernic 351v was released in 2021, and I will list all the tech specs over here. I don't know what a lot of these mean. But ultimately, this is a pretty powerful device. So regardless of all those tech specs, the first thing that really drew me to this was the form factor. It is essentially a slightly larger Game Boy Color. What honestly sold me though was this really cool like wood grain finish. It's actually really smooth, but it looks textured. So it's just a really nice, sleek design in my opinion. One of the biggest worries that I had in the design was the placement of the trigger buttons on the back. The R1 is slightly lower than the R2, same with the L buttons over here. And I was really kind of concerned that it would be really difficult to differentiate between the two. But with the slightly larger form factor than a Game Boy, it actually feels really comfortable in your hands, and I didn't really come across any problems pressing these buttons. The great thing about this too is when you get it and you take it right out of the box, you will be able to play because it comes preloaded with a ton of different systems and a ton of different games for all of those systems. However, after doing a little digging, I found that putting custom firmware on here is the route to go. Now, I'm not a software wizard, so Retro Game Core actually has an amazing tutorial on how to do this and which custom firmwares they would recommend, so I'll have that link down in the description below. It really doesn't take that long to install these firmwares, and I kind of would highly recommend doing it. You're going to get significantly better performance on a lot of these emulators, and it probably only took me about an hour, and as I said, I'm not really a software wizard. So what can you actually play on this thing? Well, for me personally, it was just about anything I wanted to. I recently modded a Game Boy Advance, and I'll have that link in one of these two corners. I can never remember which one it is, but it plays the entire Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance library flawlessly. You will have zero issues if this is what you're looking for. And this device comes in at about $100 at the time of this video. I think I paid maybe like $120 when I bought it. But for that price, to play all of those games for essentially free is phenomenal. To play the Pokemon games that are on those systems specifically on the original hardware is going to cost you several $100s alone. Not to mention games like Golden Sun and Summon Night are some of my favorite ones, and those also go for another $40 to $50 to $80 a piece. So it's a huge bargain at that price. Now, when you move up to things like the Super Nintendo, even games like Yoshi's Island, I had zero problem running. I had no frame drops and no lags or anything. It really ran pretty smoothly. After that, it gets a little bit dicey. When you're moving into things like the N64, some of the games work extremely well, but a lot of the games that require a lot of processing power tend to not work fantastic. I really found myself running into issues playing games that you needed the expansion pack, the additional RAM on the N64. That's really where I ran into issues, but for the most part, I was able to play some of the Zelda games just fine. Mario 64 ran great in my opinion after installing the custom firmware. And for the average gamer, I don't think you're gonna have many issues. I didn't really have any issues with PlayStation games either. Honestly, the biggest thing I had was trying to figure out which exact files the emulator would read to play the games. Now, the Nintendo DS, however, was where I really started to see performance issues. A lot of dropped frames and just overall slower performance on the games. However, if you're looking to play just Pokemon games, I don't think you're going to have that many issues. And honestly, I thought they ran just fine. Ultimately, when it comes to Pokemon games, I prefer to play on the original hardware, but, you know, for this price, I can't really beat that. The workaround for using the dual screens with just a single screen is actually pressing the L2 or the R2 buttons to switch between the screens. Unfortunately, you have to use the thumbstick in order to move around the wand, which acts as the finger, because the LCD screen isn't actually a touch screen on this device. Ultimately, everything runs pretty well on here, at least for my needs personally. I was even able to get some PSP games to work pretty smoothly just by making a few tweaks in the emulation settings. Putting games on this was actually super easy. The device has a dual card reader, so you put your OS on one of the micro SD cards, and then the other you can put all of your game files. It's actually super intuitive. The organization that comes on the original SD cards was surprisingly good, so I honestly just copied that. Was able to drag and drop all of my ROM files that I wanted to play into the appropriate folders, and boom, you are ready to go. I didn't push this device to its absolute limit, but for my needs, I got it to work with everything that I possibly wanted to, and even more than that. Now, this thing really isn't a perfect device. However, for the price point, and honestly, if you're willing to put in the time, you're not going to find something better. So, honestly, I'd recommend picking this up in the holiday season for a friend, for yourself, for your family. This device is fantastic and I highly recommend it. Thanks again for watching this video. It really does mean a lot to me personally, and if you enjoy content like this and you want to support the channel, feel free to hit that big subscribe button down below. Like this video, comment, share it, do all that fun stuff. Tell your friends and family about it. It just means a lot, and honestly, it's free. It really does help support the channel. So thank you again, and we'll see you in the next video.